They offered my dream job to my sister, while I was burying our father. I still remember the cold silence in the HR email. "We regret to inform you." No reason, no feedback, just rejection. At first, I blamed the timing. I had missed the final interview to organize Dad's funeral. I thought they moved on. But the truth hit me harder than any corporate rejection ever could. My name's Clara, and for the past 8 years, I've worked my way up as a software engineer in Seattle. I wasn't brilliant, but I was reliable. I didn't come from much. Just me, my younger sister Celeste, and our single father. After Mom left when we were kids, Dad worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. I owe everything I have to him. Celeste was always different. Beautiful, popular, impulsive. She never really held a job for more than a few months. But when social media took off, she found her calling. Beauty tutorials, lifestyle vlogs, brand collabs. She made her name as Celeste Rose. Pretty face, perfect life, thousands of followers, and not a shred of gratitude. Dad got sick fast. Pancreatic cancer doesn't wait. I took time off, drove him to appointments, cooked, cleaned, managed meds. Celeste? She showed up with a ring light and vegan smoothies, and left 30 minutes later because the lighting was awful in the hospital room. After he passed, I stayed with his body for hours. Just me. She had already left to catch a flight to LA. There was an event she couldn't miss. I didn't argue. I just buried the only parent who ever showed up for us. A week later, I got the email. The company I'd been interviewing with, Kronos Robotics, a mid-sized tech firm doing amazing work with AI healthcare tools, sent me a flat rejection. No explanation. I'd already passed 2 rounds, and the CTO even called me a perfect cultural fit. I was devastated, but life doesn't stop for heartbreak. I went back to work at my old job. Low pay, long hours, zero future. I was trying to move forward until 2 weeks later, when Celeste waltzed into Mom's house, where I was still staying, wearing Kronos Robotics merch. At first, I thought it was some influencer collab, but no, it wasn't. She twirled around in the kitchen and said, "Guess who's Kronos' new community innovation manager?" I just stared. She grinned. "Don't look so shocked. I pitched them a whole brand integration idea using their AI tools and my platform. They said I was fresh, disruptive. And the funniest part? They found my background in software impressive." I blinked. "You don't have a background in software." She laughed. "Well, I might have borrowed a few bullet points from your resume. You left it on Dad's desk. Lucky me." My throat went dry. I asked quietly, "You submitted my resume?" She shrugged. "I customized it, made it sound more me. Honestly, Clara, you weren't going to get it. You're too serious. They needed someone with energy." I couldn't breathe. My jaw literally locked. She had stolen my application, my chance, and twisted it into her own elevator pitch. "I was their candidate," I whispered. She tilted her head, voice dripping with condescension. "Maybe you were, but you didn't show up. I did." And just like that, my sister, who hadn't written a line of code in her life, was walking around town with my dream job. My dream. Later that night, I sat alone in the basement bedroom, staring at the ceiling. Dad's old lamp was still on the shelf. The silence was suffocating. For the first time in years, I felt like giving up. Then I opened my laptop. I logged into GitHub, and I started building something better. But nothing could have prepared me for what I'd discover just 3 weeks later. Celeste had not only taken my job, she had pitched my private, unreleased project as her own. I didn't sleep that night. Not after seeing the screenshots. Not after realizing that Celeste had pitched my private prototype, the one I'd spent a year quietly building after hours, as part of her vision for Kronos Robotics. She didn't even bother to rename the file. The name of the folder was still Clara AI V1. I had created it for Dad, actually. It was a machine learning assistant for elder care. Customizable, voice-operated, able to track medications and appointments. I never shared it publicly. Only 2 people ever saw it, Dad and me. until Celeste stole it. I stared at the leaked pitch deck someone from Kronos had shared on Reddit. Kronos Robotics' new ambassador stuns with bold eldercare AI vision. Bold? It was mine. Every diagram, every UX slide, even the color scheme. She hadn't even bothered to change the damn colors. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I did what I'd always done. I swallowed it. I went back upstairs to grab coffee and found my mother rearranging the living room. "Oh, good," she said, not looking up. "Celeste's moving in for a while. Her apartment's under renovation." I blinked. "She's moving in. Just temporarily," she said, waving it off. "She needs a quiet space to work now. This job is a huge opportunity." I stood frozen. "You mean my job?" She looked at me like I was insane. "Clara, don't be petty. She's doing something with her life. You should be proud." I was standing in the same house where I'd cared for Dad every day, while Celeste vanished to Coachella and product launches. And now, I was in the basement, and she got the living room and my job. It didn't stop there. Over the next week, the house changed. My desk was moved out of the dining area so Celeste could film videos. My charger disappeared. My name vanished from our family Wi-Fi. I had to ask her for the password. She smirked and said, "It's not my fault you don't have a data plan." And still, I held it in. Until one night, I came home from work and found Celeste sitting on my bed in the basement. "Oh," she said, barely glancing up from her phone. "I needed a quieter background for this collab meeting. Upstairs was too echoey." "You were sitting on my bed," I said, my voice cracking. She rolled her eyes. "Relax. It's not like I took anything. You're so dramatic." She left a half-eaten protein bar on my desk and a lipstick stain on my coffee mug. I just stood there, heart pounding, breathing shallow. And then she said it. "You know, if you'd just tried harder, maybe Kronos would have picked you." That broke something in me. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I turned around, walked up the stairs, left the house, and didn't come back that night. I slept in my car outside a closed diner with a blanket in the back seat. And the next morning, I made a decision. I drove straight to work, walked into the server room, and pulled out a USB drive I hadn't touched in months. Clara AI version 2. The real version. The one I'd kept private. Fully upgraded, secure, patented under my own LLC. Then I sent one message. To Maribel. Maribel was a friend I hadn't spoken to in nearly a year. We used to work together, and she was a brilliant developer with connections in local tech circles. She was also the only person who ever told me, "You're meant to build something of your own." I hit send. "Still interested in starting that thing we talked about?" She replied 3 minutes later. "Always. Come over tonight." But as I packed my laptop and slipped out of the office, I got a notification that stopped me cold. Celeste was going live on Kronos' Instagram. I clicked it. She was smiling, glowing under studio lights, seated in a high-tech lab, saying, "We're excited to announce the public beta of Clara AI, our revolutionary eldercare platform." She used my name for the product. My name. And then she said something that made my blood run cold. And yes, I designed it myself. Watching her smile in that live stream made my stomach twist. Celeste was sitting in Kronos' lab, proudly introducing the AI system I built, and she named it after me. Clara AI. She literally used my name to brand something she stole. And then, as if that wasn't enough, she looked straight into the camera and said, "I created this for my late father. He inspired me to make something meaningful." My hands clenched so hard, my nails cut into my palms. She was using Dad's memory, the man she ignored while I bathed, fed, and carried to his treatments, to sell a lie. The same man she didn't even cry for at the funeral. I stood there, frozen, in the hallway outside Maribel's apartment, phone still in my hand, ears ringing. When I knocked, Maribel opened the door and immediately knew something was wrong. "She used my name," I said, my voice shaking. She called it Clara AI, and she said she made it for Dad. Maribel didn't ask questions. She pulled me inside and set up tea like nothing had changed. That's what I loved about her. She didn't coddle, she acted. We spent the entire night planning. By morning, I had dusted off my LLC, transferred my domain, and re-uploaded every development log, research journal, and time-stamped prototype video to a secure cloud. Everything was dated, backed up, and traceable, because I had always planned to launch Clara AI eventually. But now it wasn't about launching. It was about taking it back. 3 days later, I emailed Kronos' legal department. I was polite, professional. I didn't accuse anyone outright. I simply introduced myself as the original developer of the Clara AI platform, included patent filings, GitHub timestamps, and video logs. And then I attached one key file, a clip of my late father, frail but lucid, talking directly into the camera. My daughter Clara made this for me. I call it my robot nurse. She's always thinking ahead, that one. I didn't get a reply for 4 days. Then someone from Kronos' HR called me, requesting a meeting with their executive team. The day of the meeting, I wore my plainest blouse, no makeup, and carried a battered laptop. Let them underestimate me. Their CTO, a stiff man with rimless glasses, greeted me. "We're concerned. The material you sent us is compelling." I nodded. "It should be. I wrote every line of that system over 3 years." He didn't deny it. "We had no idea the concept came from outside Celeste's pitch," he said. "She mentioned your name, but we assumed it was a tribute." "A tribute?" I raised an eyebrow. "To the sister she pushed into the basement while she stole her work?" He didn't answer. They didn't offer me a job. They didn't apologize either. What they did offer was a settlement, a quiet, off-the-record agreement to stop using the name Clara AI, remove Celeste from product involvement, and pay out a licensing fee for continued development under a new name. I said I'd think about it. Then I went home and waited, because I knew Celeste wouldn't take it quietly. That night, she stormed into the house. I was in the kitchen, slicing vegetables. She slammed her bag onto the table. "What did you do?" I didn't look up. "Is something wrong?" "Kronos is investigating me. They told me to take an indefinite leave. They said someone claimed I stole the concept." I finally met her eyes. "Not someone, me." Her face turned ghost white. You're jealous. You always were. That's why you're trying to ruin this for me." "No," I said calmly. "I'm trying to take back what's mine." Then I walked past her, heading to the basement. But as I reached the stairs, she screamed behind me. "I used your name because they loved it, because you were too scared to put yourself out there." I paused. Then I said quietly, "And yet, here you are, about to lose everything while I'm just getting started." The next morning, Celeste was gone. Her clothes, her lights, her cameras, all packed up. But in their place was a thick envelope left on the dining table. Inside, a Kronos Robotics NDA, marked urgent, with one condition scribbled in Celeste's handwriting. "If you sign this, they'll fire me permanently. If you don't, I'll make you regret it." And just when I thought she couldn't go any lower, I saw what else was inside. A flash drive, labeled Backups, Clara AI Final. She'd kept everything, every stolen file, every line of code. She never deleted it, not even after she got caught. Comment the number 1 if you want to see how I use this to destroy everything she built. I stared at the flash drive for a long time. It was sitting right next to Celeste's ultimatum. Her scrawled warning felt more like desperation than confidence. "If you sign the NDA, they'll fire me permanently. If you don't, I'll make you regret it." The arrogance of it, after stealing my resume, my job, my code, even my father's memory, she still thought she could control the narrative. But the flash drive, that was her biggest mistake. She could have wiped it clean. She could have destroyed it. Instead, she kept a full backup of my stolen work, and gave it to me, thinking she was still in control. So I made a decision. No more hesitation, no more silence. It was time to finish this. The next morning, I went straight to Maribel's office. She worked for a mid-sized consulting firm that specialized in tech security and intellectual property litigation. I dropped the flash drive on her desk. "This is everything she took," I said, "and her signature is in the code metadata. Look for the lines she tried to personalize." Maribel opened the files. "She didn't even change the comments," she said, scrolling through my original code. "Note to self, remind Dad to take meds." My heart ached reading that line again, but it also made me furious. This wasn't just theft, it was identity theft. Personal, deliberate, and disgusting. Maribel looked up. "Are you ready to go nuclear?" "Yes," I said. "I want her gone from tech for good." We started with the email to Kronos's board of directors. A full documentation package, timestamps, GitHub logs, internal backups, and the most damning part, Celeste editing my code and changing my name to hers, line by line. With Maribel's firm as legal representation, the tone was clear. This was no bluff. Then we leaked a copy of the pitch deck side by side with my original presentation. Same design, same structure, except one was made with actual skill, and the other was Celeste's butchered remix. By the end of the week, tech forums exploded. Posts with titles like, "Influencer steals AI platform from her own sister, gets exposed." "Clara AI creator goes public. Turns out it wasn't Celeste Rose after all." And then came the interview requests. Maribel advised me to stay quiet until Kronos responded, but I gave one exclusive to a local Seattle paper. I kept it simple. I didn't want fame, I just wanted credit, and to protect the integrity of something I built for my dad. That line went viral. Celeste, meanwhile, vanished offline. Her YouTube channel went private, her Instagram emptied, all her branded content sponsors dropped her within 72 hours. One by one, companies issued public statements cutting ties, citing a breach of trust. And then, finally, the call came from Kronos. They wanted to settle everything, not just licensing anymore. They offered to buy the full rights to Clara AI under my name, with me as the lead developer and department director, should I accept. A full public rebranding, press coverage, total control. I agreed, with one condition. I want a public apology, not from Kronos, from her. There was a pause. Then the CEO said, "You'll have it by Friday." But what happened Friday wasn't what I expected. That morning, Maribel called me, her voice shaking. "Clara, open your email, now." I clicked the new message from Kronos's legal team. Attached was a photo. It was Celeste, in handcuffs. I blinked. "What?" "She forged your LLC documents," Maribel said. "Registered the company as her own. It's corporate fraud. Kronos did a deeper audit and found everything. She signed multiple contracts under false identity." My hands went cold. They were pressing criminal charges. For a moment, I didn't know how to feel. I hadn't wanted this. I wanted justice, yes. Revenge, sure. But jail? Then I remembered her laughing on my bed, lipstick on my mug, telling me I wasn't good enough, saying she did it for Dad. And suddenly, I felt nothing at all. Courtroom floors are colder than you'd think. I stood there, palms damp, heart steady, facing the woman who once sat on my bed, laughed in my face and said, "You just weren't enough." Celeste looked nothing like the version the internet once worshipped. Gone were the fake lashes, the ring lights, the $1,000 blazers. She wore a loose gray suit provided by her attorney, her hair flat, her expression hollow. She didn't look at me as the judge read the charges. Fraud, identity theft, contract misrepresentation. She didn't flinch when Kronos's lawyers outlined the full extent of her deceit. But when they brought up Dad, how she used his name, his illness, his image, her shoulders finally dropped. I wasn't here to humiliate her. That part was done. Her brand was gone. Her sponsors gone. Her social channels had turned into graveyards of bitter comments. And now, She was facing legal consequences that would haunt her for years. But what I hadn't expected was what came next. The judge turned to me and said, "Miss Wilson, would you like to make a statement?" For a moment, I hesitated. Then I stood up and spoke. When my father was dying, I held his hand through every chemo session. Celeste wasn't there, not once. I built Clara AI to help people like him live with dignity. And instead of helping, she took my work and used it for likes. I looked at my sister, really looked. I didn't come here for revenge. I came for accountability. And for every woman who's been told to be quiet, to sit back, to let someone prettier take the credit, this is for them too. The courtroom was dead silent. Even Celeste didn't blink. 2 weeks later, the verdict came in. Celeste was found guilty of misrepresentation and fraud. No jail time. This wasn't a violent crime. But the judge ordered 18 months of probation, mandatory restitution payments, and barred her from working in tech or media for 5 years. And that's when the final twist hit. As part of her restitution, Celeste was ordered to pay a percentage of future income, no matter where she worked, directly to my company. That meant every coffee she poured, every retail shift she picked up, every miserable paycheck, a slice would go to me. And I wouldn't even notice it, because by that time, Clara A I had launched. For real, not under Kronos. I'd walked away from their offer and launched independently, with Maribel as my co-founder. The response was overwhelming. Investors backed us. Healthcare providers signed on. Reviews were glowing. One headline even read, "From basement to boardroom, Clara Wilson reclaims what's hers." And yes, I bought my own house. A modest one, with big windows and a quiet yard, just outside the city. On weekends, I garden. On weekdays, I lead a team of 10 engineers. And sometimes, when I see the calendar reminder for Dad's birthday, I light a candle and thank him for teaching me to build. Last week, I saw Celeste for the first time since the sentencing. I was grabbing groceries. She was behind the counter, scanning barcodes, her eyes sunken, her shoulders slouched. When our eyes met, she froze. She didn't say a word, and neither did I. But as I walked away, I heard her whisper, barely loud enough to catch, "I really thought I could be you." I paused, turned back just long enough to look her in the eyes. "You could've," I said, "if you'd ever learned how to be real." Then I walked out, and for the first time in years, I felt free. Comment the number 1 if you stayed with me through this story and want more true revenge tales like this. Don't forget to like and subscribe. There's always another story coming.